Welcome to the Pet Loss Companion. I'm Ken Dolan-Del Vecchio, here with my friend and co-author, Nancy Saxton-Lopez. And this is a program that we do live on YouTube, and it's broadcast to Facebook, and the replay will be on many different
Mhm.
podcast outlets after we are done with the live program today. And a lot of what we do during our episodes is we read
Mhm.
emails that we receive from audience members that talk about the life of their beloved animal companion, their passing, and how they're doing in their grief. And we're going to read a story today.
Mhm.
And you are welcome to send us your accounts as well, your stories. You can reach me at kenddv at gmail.com. You can reach Nancy at nancysaxtonlopez at gmail.com. And when you write to us, please let us know if it's okay to share
Mhm.
with our audience members. And if you would prefer that we don't, one or both of us will write back to you in
Mhm.
any case. You can also tell us that there are certain parts of the story that are fine to share and maybe not so much with others. And we'll certainly honor that. There are a number of ways that you can support the work that we're doing, and they are detailed in the description that accompanies the program. And also, we'd like you to know that this program is a friend of Dakin Humane Society, which is a great adoption and shelter service here in Springfield, Massachusetts. And they not only do that work, but they also offer a number of resources that are beneficial for people who love their animal companions the way that we do. And one of those resources is a Zoom
Mhm.
pet loss support meeting that I facilitate once a month. It's on the second Tuesday of every month at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And there is an RSVP link in the description as well. It doesn't cost anything. You can Zoom in from anywhere in the world, and in fact, people do. And so please join us if you think that that will be helpful. If you RSVP and then you decide that you can't make it, it would be great if you could just send me an email and let me know that you won't be able to make it, and we will reopen
Mhm.
the registration because we cap at 50, and sometimes we get close to that number. And so it would be great if you let me know, then I can
Mhm.
reopen the registration. Also, we want to let you know that our book, The Pet Loss Companion, Healing Advice from Family Therapists Who Lead Pet Loss Groups, is now available as an audio book, and you can get that audio book at Apple Books, Spotify, Audible, all the other platforms where you would find an audiobook. And finally, if you haven't already, it would be very helpful if you would subscribe, if
Mhm.
you think the program is helpful and will be helpful to other people. If you have already subscribed, thank you so much. And please consider leaving a comment or a thumbs up or a heart, because any of those ways that you interact with the program help the algorithm to bring it to the attention of other people who may benefit. And finally, we would like you to know that we have a relationship with a company called Bereave that offers these very well crafted memorial plaques. They're granite, they're very heavy, and they are inscribed with whatever you would like to say in memory of your beloved animal companion. And so if you buy one of these plaques through the link in our description, we will get a little bit of a gift back as part of your purchase price.
Mhm.
And Nancy, you want to get us started?
Yeah, we have a nice story tonight. They're always heartfelt and loving, and yet they're also very heartbreaking, right? This is what we do. Um, but stories are really important for people to write, and it's cathartic, and it's also important and it's cathartic to have them said, for us to share them on the podcast. So tonight is Niki with her Kizzie, a little cat, and Ken and I will share it. Nothing that transpired was supposed to happen the way it happened. This is the story of how a cat entered and left my life. The words serendipity, synchronicity, coincidence, I've used them all in the past to try to clarify my narrative. In the psychology of Carl Jung, the term synchronicity means the simultaneous occurrence of casually unrelated events and the belief that the simultaneity has meaning beyond mere coincidence. I prefer kismet, a lovely word that means fate or destiny, the belief that certain simultaneities have a meaning beyond mere coincidence. That is kismet. The fates first coincided in April of 2018 when I was in a late life career change, pursuing a master's degree in counseling psychology and working at an internship at a community crisis center in downtown Boston. Located in a looming building in the brutalist architectural style, that's interesting, Solomon Carter Fuller Building, near the infamous corridor known as Massing Cass, housed several floors of a forensic psychiatric unit and a short-term, 2 to 4 days, residential center for people suffering from substance-fueled psychological crises. Most of our clients were also homeless. I loved my work and the clients, doing intake interviews, getting folks settled in their rooms, and running the group therapy sessions, which I did, aided by my 2 registered visiting pet therapy guinea pigs, Calvin and Stuart. These little guys did a world of good for the clients who interacted with them, as Cal and Stu provided unconditional acceptance and love to people who had too little of both. I never worked on a Wednesday, but this particular Wednesday evening I had agreed to sub for a colleague. A client came into the center. She stood out for her unusual biopsychosocial profile, well spoken, educated, employed, but also in the throes of a psychological trauma. I did not handle her intake, but we recognized each other from a previous stay. She greeted me warmly, saying something along the lines of being so glad to see me since she remembered the guinea pig boys and thus knew that I was an animal lover. And then I left my cat in my apartment. I'm not sure how long ago that was, with only one bowl of food. I know you love animals. Please, could you make sure she's all right? She was right about me being an animal lover, although she didn't know that I had grown up with cats, loved cats, and was blessed with a mother who truly was a cat whisperer. But my heart sank. How could I help in this situation? I worked part time for a crisis agency. However, she was so upset by the situation that I assured her I would do everything I could to try to help her kitty. The next day, Thursday, I started the phone calls. First to animal control in the nearby city where she lived, no answer, left a voicemail. Next to the Animal Rescue League, they couldn't enter anyone's apartment, but of course encouraged me to do something to save the cat. Next, the MSPCA, where a friend worked. No, no one could enter an apartment, but yes, you must do something to help this animal. I felt helpless and sad. This cat could not be allowed to perish. Friday, I was back at work on my usual shift. The client was anxious, and I was anxious since the animal control office had not responded to the second call. A bold decision was needed. I told my supervisor about the situation and that in spite of whatever rules, excuse me, might be floating around, I would take the client's key and go to the apartment myself. Thankfully, he loved animals, was totally devoted to his pug, and when I assured him that I would not be taking the same action as an employee of the agency that ran the center, but as a concerned individual, and he agreed. On Saturday, I was nervous. The client told me she lived in a bad neighborhood, so my imagination painted a picture of being caught in some gang-related crossfire as I saved a poor feline. I armed myself with gloves, a box, and some cat food, not knowing if what awaited me in that apartment was a dead animal or a weak, sickly cat. When I arrived at the address, it was a relief to see it appeared to be a normal neighborhood, and I let myself into the building and the apartment with the keys that the client had given me. The cat, she told me, was 4 years old, named Kitty, and that she'd had her since kittenhood. Walking into the apartment, I started calling her name. Nothing. Kitty? Nothing. Puss? Nothing. Kitty? And then a small, black, medium-haired cat scampered out of a back room to me. My relief was enormous. The Hallelujah chorus was playing, angels were singing. I immediately fed her and refreshed her empty water bowl, then went into the living room to plot out the next steps. In the living room, I was astounded to see a wall hanging that was an exact replica of a wall hanging that I owned, made by a local artist. Einstein's quote, "Imagination is more powerful than knowledge," created in ceramics. And on a table in the room was a book by an author whose work I also owned. Marveling at these coincidences was nothing compared to what happened next. Kitty came into the living room, jumped on my lap, faced me looking into my eyes, and placed her front legs and paws around my neck. I grew up with lots of cats and had interacted with lots of cats, but never had a cat position itself with me like that. It was overwhelming, and as I looked back into her eyes, I said out loud, "Who are you? Do I know you?" Something otherworldly seemed to be in the air. That vibe was shattered when I tried to pick Kitty up. The short version of the next chapter involved me in having to make a quick run to local CVS for bacitracin, bandages, and a wound cleaner. An unfortunate sidebar to all of this was that I had called my veterinarian's office on Friday to explain that I was going to try to rescue a cat and could I bring in the cat if it was alive to them. The customer service client who knew me had assured me that was going to be fine. Once I called the vet's office from Kitty's home base, however, I learned the information about bringing in the cat was not correct, as they couldn't take in any animal that was not with its legal owner. Uh-oh. Unfolding against this situation was the rest of my life. My husband had suffered a traumatic spine injury 2 years before, was now partially paralyzed, and was in and out of the ICU, long-term hospital stays, and challenging rehabilitation facilities. My life was stretched like a rubber band, finishing up my degree and managing his situation. And there was Kelvin and Stuart, with whom I did spend or have therapy visits at an inpatient psychiatric hospital unit and other visits to area universities. The thought of bringing Kitty back to my home for 1-2 nights, where 2 guinea pigs lived in an open space, was overwhelming, but seemed to be the only option. I stopped to buy some disposal kitty litter pans, more cat food, and managed to get Kitty into my car and then into my home via a blanket thrown over her. Now what? As soon as Kitty entered the house, she jumped onto the couch next to me where I'd flopped, overwhelmed and exhausted. She had no interest in exploring or seeking out Cal or Stu, and that night, as if we had done this for years, she slept on my bed with me.
Over the next several days, I tried to find a home or shelter that would take her. A neighbor wanted her desperately, as she had just gone through the death of her beloved cat, and I assured her that Kitty was very friendly. When the neighbor came to the door, Kitty ran away and refused to show herself until my neighbor left, at which point the cat revealed herself and once again curled up with me on the couch. I was beginning to feel odd. This cat had chosen me, it seemed, but to what end? It turned out that I could not surrender her to any rescues or agencies because she wasn't mine. I tried to explain that the chances that her owner was still where I had met her were slim to nil, and if she had left, I would have no idea where she went. The situation seemed hopeless. But then some more synchronicity. When I called work on Sunday, a full 4 nights, 5 days after Kitty's owner had been admitted, she was still at the center. This was incredible since most clients were usually able to stay only 2 nights, 3 maximum. The client agreed that Kitty should be adopted by me. I dictated a letter to my supervisor with the correct language surrendering the cat to me. He faxed it to me, and I immediately called Paws Wakefield, a wonderful cat rescue, who had told me that as much as they wanted to help, they needed official surrender paperwork. The woman I spoke to at Paws was happy and relieved that the cat had been successfully extracted, and said she had the perfect foster parent for her. But, well, this loving cat parent was just finishing up a foster, so could I keep Kitty just a few more days? My heart sank. But then there was this. The cat had been making herself at home, had shown no interest in the piggies, and somehow the idea of keeping her just slipped into my mind. It was crazy, I told myself. I couldn't take on a cat. My best friend, a cat mom whose life had never been without a Gracie or a Perry or a Muffin, reminded me that I was in grad school full-time, managing a very difficult ongoing medical situation with my husband, and barely had time to see my friends, much less pay attention to a new cat. My husband thought it was not a good idea. My internal debate went on for a steady 24 hours until, desperate for a resolution, I called my therapist. After listening to my whole story, replete with a host of self-doubts and a litany of reasons why adopting Kitty made absolutely no sense, he responded with a simple question. So, what do you want to do? I want to keep her. And that was that. I renamed this wonderful cat Kismet, or Kizzie for short. She was thankfully healthy, and when she did hang out with the guinea pigs, she did so at a respectful distance. We had a wonderful life. Kizzie saw me through my grad school graduation, a fulfilling job as a group therapist at a behavioral health hospital, the very dark time following the deaths of my husband and my best friend within weeks of each other, COVID, the passings of Calvin and Stuart, a new career as a university instructor, and the arrival of Hermie, an adopted guinea pig. She was a Velcro kitty constantly by my side when I read and slept. She had to be touching me as much as possible. Sometimes she would literally throw herself into the crook of my arm when I was reading or sleeping. She was waiting for me right inside the front door when I came home, and our ritual involved sticking my face close to her so she could smell my mouth and kiss me. I'm a side sleeper, but this didn't deter Kizzie, who would simply recline on my hip until my body rebelled and I had to slip her off. We played endless games of stickball with a Dr. Pussums, a catnip produced under feline supervision toy, which consisted of my pitching the sewn square at her and her batting it back to me. Kizzie batted 1,000, never, honestly, never missing the ball. She remained healthy except for one dental issue, but despite her affection, she could not be picked up, and going to the vet for annual checkups was a project of monumental dimensions involving stealth, more bacitracin, and lots of gabapentin for her and me. On the Friday before Memorial Day weekend, 2025, I brought Kizzie for her semi-annual checkup. This was one of the 5 out of 10 visits that worked. My wonderful veterinarian checked her thoroughly and pronounced her healthy, heart, lungs, even her teeth. We went home victorious, and that night, with Kizzie watching me, I completed a PowerPoint on the disenfranchised grief of pet death for an upcoming class I was teaching on grief and bereavement. Kizzie slept exceptionally close to me throughout the night. On Saturday afternoon at 2:00 p.m., Kizzie started vomiting and then started struggling to breathe. It was terrible, awful, frightening. I rushed her to Angel Memorial Hospital, where they put her on oxygen and told me they had seen a large mass between her heart and her lungs. They referred me to Massachusetts Veterinary Referral Hospital, a fabulous hospital of last resort for very, very sick pets, and I broke the speed limit driving her to that destination 30 minutes away. Kizzie passed peacefully in my arms at 11 p.m. in a room where I could hold her and tell her how much she meant to me. Even though trained as a pet grief counselor, it made no difference in the pain and heartache I felt. Arrangements were made for her to be cremated, and for an urn I chose a wooden curled-up sleeping cat for her cremains. After getting the notice that her urn was ready to be picked up, I drove out to the crematory. It was exactly a week later, a Saturday. The crematory was located in a somewhat rural area, and as I drove on the windy main road, took note of the names of smaller roads leading off it. Up ahead was a sign bigger than all the other street signs with large red letters. I slowed down to see what path had earned this distinction. When I read the sign, my heart stopped. Solomon Carter Fuller Road, the sign said. Solomon Carter Fuller, the name of the building where I worked when Kizzie came into my life, in the heart of the city of Boston. But out here, miles away from that urban crisis center in a rural area, a complete WTF moment. A rush of emotions and feelings made me feel like I was buzzing. The crematory was only a bit further down the road from this sign. On my way back, holding Kizzie in her urn, I stopped to reread the sign to convince myself that I had not imagined it. the name of the place emblazoned where our life together had started, and now again where our life together had ended, at least in the physical sense. A sense of peace came over me. The circle had been completed. I looked at the urn next to me and gently petted it. Thank you, I said to Kizzie and the universe. What lives in your heart as love can never leave you. Karma, kismet indeed.
Wow, so many signs there, right?
Yeah, it's quite a story.
I mean, that cat, Kizzie, was her cat.
Yeah, it was
I mean, there
meant to
was no
be.
doubt about that. She would
Yeah,
hide every other place, you know, and it was meant to be.
yeah,
And that whole piece of the building and then the sign, the street sign, that's pretty
yeah.
amazing.
It's something the way things fall
Yeah.
into place like that sometimes. It's like
And
she just knew.
the other
And
thing is, how much do you go? I mean, a lot of what we have gone through ourselves, you and I can, and
mhm.
other people, and all the people that we work with and we, counsel about pet loss. So many times that animal has gone through so much
Yeah,
with
yeah,
us and
yeah,
never once faltered, right?
yeah, yeah.
Always loved, always was there, always stood ground, always knew if you were sad or you were
Hmm.
upset, just consistent, unconditional love. And that's why this is so hard.
And the connection when I so identified when this little cat kind of just embraced her the
Yeah,
first time.
right?
And
First time.
she said, who are you? Do I know you? Something
Yeah.
otherworldly seemed to be in the air. I have two of the animals who I've had in my life where I felt that way. One was Phoebe, and she was a little black cat. Bombay is the breed, apparently. We got her in an adoption center in Manhattan, and Isabel, who I picked up when she
Oh,
was a little puppy. The
yeah.
same thing. I just felt like there was some kind of spiritual connection
Connection.
that was with us throughout their lives, and it's just felt so resonant when I read that from
Yeah.
her story.
And
Yeah,
we hear that a lot, and
yeah,
we do when I talk. I think you do too. That your companion has died, but we know that that companion will help find another. And
yeah,
people get amazed by that
yeah.
because it was just recently, right? That her dog had died. I can't remember who exactly it was, and she then it's one of my clients, and she got another dog. The dog went right to the place that her first dog
Uh,
laid down
yeah,
and knew the routine, right?
yeah, yeah. That's something.
And and I said, well, I think Birdie has something to do with this, you know.
Uh,
So it can happen. A
yeah,
lot of times people go to look and it doesn't work, and then all of a sudden it works
yeah,
to find another one. And it's just like kismet,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Exactly. And I like that she is a therapist, and
Yeah.
she talks to a therapist, which is,
Yes.
I think, really a good thing that she says that, because it just helps people to normalize the fact that all of us can benefit from therapy at different times.
Therapist also.
Yeah, and then when she says that even though she's trained as a grief counselor, she still
Yeah.
felt the pain. Like
Of
nothing
course.
protects you
No.
from this.
Mm-mm.
It can be our profession to
But that,
help people,
yeah.
but
But
when it hits us, boy, I mean,
you know, and I know
I've
we've been
become
through it a lot.
I've become completely unhinged at
Yeah.
times when I've lost an animal,
Yeah.
and that's just what happens to us.
We are
And
human.
yeah,
This is what we
yeah,
do for a living, but that doesn't mean we have those same feelings about our beautiful companions that have died.
yeah, and so I appreciate this story because there's
Yeah.
so much richness here,
Yeah.
and it does show us this reality that the connections we have with some of our animals seem to be preordained
Yep.
somehow, and they know it before we do sometimes. It's
That's
just very powerful,
it
the
is very powerful.
description.
And you see, I mean, you hear it, you see it, I mean, all of a sudden that's the one, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
and they know right away. People
And
know right away.
And I love her ending. One of her ending sentences: "What
Yes.
lives in your heart is love, can never
Can
leave
never
you."
leave you.
Yeah, and it's
And it
just
never
very.
does.
It's they stay with us. We hold on to them, and they their gifts remain with us. The pain dissipates. It comes back now and then. It never
Well,
grief
you,
never completely
no,
ends,
no.
but it doesn't tear us up as much after a certain amount of time, and that
Well,
varies for individual per individual as it
yeah.
does in the very beginning.
But you learn how to live with it.
Yeah,
You
you
learn
just
how to
do.
live with what they give you,
Yeah,
and what they how they change your life. They always change us in some way that is for the better.
yep, yep.
Yeah.
So we want to thank
Niki.
Niki for this great story and for sharing it with us and allowing us to share
Mm-hmm.
with others. And again, it to me it just is really important to stress that it's always a good idea if you think it would be helpful to talk with a healing professional,
You can.
because it's just so many people I think feel still like there's some stigma to it. And when we can benefit from some help, it's a really good thing to
Yeah.
allow ourselves to avail ourselves of it, and we deserve it.
Yeah, we do deserve it, and it's
So
okay.
again, if you haven't subscribed and you find this program helpful, it'd be great if you could subscribe and also leave a comment, leave a thumbs up. All of those
Yeah, be nice,
actions are
helpful.
helpful. Thank you.
Yes. Take care, everybody.
Take care.
We'll see you next week.